Awesome. Okay, well, I'm Rachel with the Texas PETAL Project.
I'm Sarah.
And behind us is our garden. I'll start to show more views of it. So we wanted to show kind of common, what we call weeds in our gardens, but also, you know, how invasive or pervasive can they be? Are they native or non-native? What are the benefits to them? So hopefully this kind of helps go over some of it. Also kind of showing some tricks for pulling out the weeds, when it's a good time to pull them, or when you want to be careful because they might get too big. But yeah, so we'll give a little garden tour and show a few things, and then we'll start to dive into the weeds. So I'm gonna flip my camera so you get to see the cool stuff. Okay, cool. All right, so we have this little garden plot at our community garden. So what we did here is kind of a milpa mix. So for Texas summers, these are great. It's a variety of summer daikon, squash, green beans, okra, melon, some calendula flower, like a native flower. And so these will all kind of be mutually beneficial with each other, help provide some different shade coverage or height, depending on what the plant is. So this is a bed where we kind of scattered the seed around and let things grow kind of however. So this is an example of one of the weeds we're going to talk about. It's lamb's quarter. That's one. Here's another little one, if I can get in here. That's marigolds. No, wait. No. Morning glory. Sorry, morning glories. Really pretty, but they will take over your whole garden. So we'll show a little bit more about that. We have kind of some more rose style plants. So we have some basil and tomatoes and spicy peppers. And then we have another bed of kind of rose style. There's some squash that's starting to flower. This is some cucumber that's starting to flower. And then we have zinnias. These are a great Texas native, southern native.
Yeah, they're it's like Central America-ish. Like down to there.
Yeah, so they handle the drought and the heat of our region. And they're really kind of a fast growing, fast flowering pollinator. So they're really good plant food. We also have in this area with the flowers, this is the marigold. That's the marigold. So it takes a little bit longer to bloom, but it's good. We'll have staggered blooms for our pollinators. And then we had nasturtium. That's another really good one for your garden. And this one is kind of done flowering. So we kind of had this staggering where the nasturtium was flowering early in the summer before it got too hot. Now the zinnias are blooming, and then we'll start to have marigolds. We have some dill that got wind whipped earlier this week. And some more tomatoes. This is another one we'll talk about. It's called dock. It's another edible one, but it can get really it can take over your garden also. So a lot of these, they might have benefits, but you know, you're the gardener, you get to pick what stays and goes. And it can be kind of up to you to decide if you want to leave a little area. You know, sometimes at the outer edges, it's okay to have some of these weeds and things, but that's up to you how clean you want it. Cool. I'll let Sarah talk a little bit about some of the.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Well, we did have some. Let's go back up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we learned that this weed right here that's really pervasive is called Santa Maria feverfew. That's actually a really invasive plant, and we're pulling this all the time in our garden. So this is one where it's much easier to pull when it's like younger, because it develops a long taproot. And right next to it, you've got spotted spurge. This is another invasive weed. And these stems right here secrete a sap that can irritate skin. So you want to be careful when you're pulling it. You might want to wear gloves, or you might want to use an implement to pull it. What else can we talk about here? Crabgrass and Johnson grass. So Johnson grass has, even when it's young, it has kind of a pronounced white midvein. It's another invasive turf grass that was brought over in the 1800s to feed livestock, but since then has just really taken over. And as you can tell, it's a mat forming grass. It's really hard to pull, actually. Wow, I'm amazed that actually
pull.
came up.
Great pull, Sarah.
Yeah. What else do we have here? I mean, we got crabgrass all throughout here, which it looks
some more mature.
Oh yeah, some morning glory right here, which is so pretty when it flowers. So if you want to like leave a spot of your garden that includes the morning glory, that's fine.
It can trellis maybe.
Yeah, it would trellis nicely. Some of the plots down the way have some like growing among the plants, and it looks pretty. I'm not sure like how good that would be for the plants. What else? Crabgrass? Is this crabgrass?
I was pulling a bunch of it.
Crabgrass is pretty. Yeah, that's crabgrass.
Yeah.
I think. It's kind of a softer green grass, you know, and that's one that's pretty easy to pull, but it's like a network, a mat forming network. Some people use herbicides on invasive weeds and stuff like that, but crabgrass is one of those that does not respond to herbicide very well.
You just have to pull it.
Yeah, you just got to pull it when you see it. What else can we talk about?
We can talk about this is the lamb's quarter.
Yes.
I mentioned a little bit. So at least in Texas, we get kind of this little variety. There's this one where you see kind of the purplish. Oh yeah, letting morning glory take over your back fence. That's a great spot for it to take over. Yeah. So this is the lamb's quarter. It gets this purplish color to it. You can see it on the stems too. But then sometimes it'll just have that white on the leaf. Those are both lamb's quarter. And it's a pretty prolific Texas native. It grows a lot in farm and garden areas. The leaves are edible. You can eat it like spinach, but it can take over. So we had one that we kind of let grow in the bed, and it was about 2 feet tall. And the roots were going through this whole bed. So the roots will really take away a lot of the nutrients. So you just got to be careful when you're, you almost can be selective where you're letting things grow in the weeds and then where you want to deter them from coming into your bed. But yeah, this is an edible one and a native one, but it can take over.
It's aggressive.
Yeah.
If you're going to eat any of the weeds that you find, you want to make sure to cook them.
Yeah.
A lot of them have oxalic acid in them, which it may not hurt you initially. Like it may just give you a bit of a stomach ache initially, but it can build up in your system. So just like party greens, you want to cook them down and process them before you eat them.
Yeah.
Amaranth?
Yeah, we can look at the amaranth. So this is a big amaranth over here. I think we have some little ones growing too. Yeah. But amaranth is another native but pervasive weed. It also has some edible qualities, some medicinal uses. Amaranth can be ground into a flour. The seeds can be used as a flour. So we've let this one grow. What we're hoping is that it will flower and go to seed, and that will attract pollinators and birds. So that's why we've kind of let it. This one happened to volunteer kind of at the end of the row. So it also is we can kind of like let it take that, let it be at the end of the row. And kind of maybe it has some other weeds that kind of come in. You can see some of the grasses that kind of grow in around it. A smaller amaranth.
I saw one.
Yeah.
Did you find
no, it was more lamb's quarter. We'll try to go back and find it. Here's this dock. This is another one. We'll probably pull some of these out because it's starting to get really. So it's even just growing at our weed barrier of cardboard. It kind of likes to grow along these edges. And then this is one that has gone to seed. So curly dock is also edible. It's also kind of a native plant that'll just grow prolifically. You had some notes about curly dock.
Yeah, it's you'll see it in lawns.
Yeah.
Frequently, and you often see it along like waterways, riparian areas. Yeah, it can be. It has like a pretty deep taproot. It can be mat forming, so it's kind of one of those plants that you probably want to like pull when you see it.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to use it or not. And I should also say, if you have a compost pile, if the weed is not seeding out and it's not one of those weeds that will like take root in your compost pile, you can throw it in there to be like fuel for your garden later. So I did see a baby amaranth.
Yeah, let's go see it. You probably also saw we have sunflowers. These are also kind of just a volunteer that grew in the garden. These are kind of that Texas style. And so they've been great providing us with some shade. And then now they're all blooming. There's tons of bees and butterflies and pollinators kind of coming all around them. So that's another good one. But they do take a lot of resources also. They take a lot of water. Cool. Here's this one. Oops.
Yeah, a little baby amaranth.
There we go. Right next to the lamb's quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of what amaranth looks like as a little bit younger. So I kind of always noticed the difference in leaves. I used to mix up lamb's quarter and amaranth. They're
very similar.
They're both similar and common in a lot of the same areas, but amaranth has these really kind of skinny long leaves. You can kind of see the definition that they have versus the wider leaves that lamb's quarter has. Lamb's quarter sometimes also has kind of a I put my finger on there. It also kind of has like a fuzziness to it compared to the amaranth, which is a little bit more shiny. So those are ways you can kind of differentiate those when you see them.
We could check out that ragweed over there.
Oh yeah. Okay. So one of the worst weeds, right, is ragweed. You'll get a little quick tour. This is our neighbor's garden. So we're going to make our way to where there's the ragweed. Oh yeah, I see it. Oh yeah. So this is ragweed, this one. It's got kind of a spiky stem. It's got this pattern of the leaves. Sometimes they kind of split up like this. Sometimes they're whole like that.
Yeah, as they mature, they get that the three prong.
As they mature, they get kind of that three prong, and they'll get really tall. They'll start to have their seed pods, and then that's what makes us all not want to come outside and sneezing too much. And so that's ragweed. It grows prolifically here. All the nature centers and garden areas will have it. Yeah. You can see some of the different grasses, how we get these kind of bunching grasses. And then this is more of that Johnson grass kind of as it's getting mature.
Oh, there's a really good example of that white. Sorry, I'm obsessed with
you're good.
The white mid-bean. It's very obvious there.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Okay, we'll go back over to our garden. So one last bit we thought we could kind of share was once you've identified these weeds and you want to pull them up, what's the good way to do that? And so, yeah, it's important that you can identify them because you might have these weeds or grasses kind of growing right next to your plants. And so differentiating them really helps. You don't want to just be pulling, everything. Some of that stuff you've planted, you want to keep growing. So here's some more of the morning glories that if we left them in this bed, it would just take over everything. So what you want to try to do when you're pulling weeds is I like to get as close into the kind of the dirt as I can to try to pull up the whole root, or at least as much of it as you can. This is usually easier in the garden beds, and especially if you've watered or it's rained. If you're in like kind of like the harder walkways or pathways, it's going to be harder ground, so it might be harder to pull stuff. But see, like that one, I didn't quite get a good pull on it, so the roots are still in there. It's also just great to do some hand weeding, because when you get in and pull even just little weeds like that, you're helping mix up the soil and the microbes that are in there. So you're just giving it that really kind of light hand tilling sort of, that will really help kind of mix up soil nutrients at the topsoil. So hand weeding is just a really great way of you learning better how to identify plants, pulling them out, kind of helping your garden. I always try to pull a little bit of weeds when I'm checking on the garden, just so that it gets that little mixture. It gets, I don't know, touch your plants and help them.
Ooh,
oh, nice.
That's a baby too. Look at how much, like, what a vigorous root system.
Yeah.
And that's that lamb's
quarter, yeah.
One thing to note, like Rachel was talking about identifying the weeds versus your plants. This is a daikon radish, and it kind of has a similar appearance to the dock.
Yeah.
So you probably want to, especially with your rosette plants, because so many weeds form this rosette, which is, that's what this is called, when it's like it comes out of in a circular formation. Yeah. So dock. This is not dock. This is the daikon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and sometimes you've got to know what your early seedlings are looking like, or you just kind of let some of the weeds grow with some of your plants until you can identify things. And sometimes they get crafty in here. We got some Johnson grass growing in the tomato plant, so we'll kind of pull that. But it even already started to have a little grass kind of seed pod, so those grasses will just take over. Yeah.
You gotta watch out for those.
Here's more lamb's quarter. So it grows pretty easily in every bed. And here's even like a little bit of an older one.
Oh yeah.
And it's,
oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. They get big. Well, are there any questions? Now we had a few comments. Awesome.
Do you all have any frequently asked questions that you get when you're kind of bringing in new people to the garden? Maybe that could help spur some questions as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we've seen with wanting to do this workshop too, was kind of, you think of weeding, if you're an inexperienced gardener, you never done it, you don't always know kind of what you're looking for with the weeds, or what's a good way of pulling them. I see a lot of kind of, I'll say, novice gardeners that just kind of pull, just kind of think trimming that top layer, kind of like mowing it, is okay. But you'll always have to pull weeds, especially if you're doing organic and sustainable and you're not using chemicals, which we don't. So you're always going to have some hand pulling, and just kind of learning what's growing. There's a lot of great apps that you can take pictures of things and kind of learn what's in your area and what's growing, and then just trying to pull them out when it's kind of the right time. I think of weeding as, if I'm watering the garden, I'm weeding the garden, and just trying to maintain like a steady practice in it. So, because otherwise it'll become too much, and it can, so if you just do a little bit all the time, it's a little bit more manageable. But every once in a while we have to have weeding parties where things got a little hairy, or we're cleaning out a bed, and so that's okay too.
The weeds like to
Awesome.
Yeah, they like to hide, so they'll kind of creep into the plants or underneath it. So sometimes you've got to kind of look under the plant to see. something also that helps deter weeds is planting in your garden. You know, if you have some vegetables or flowers or things growing, they're going to be taking up space that the weeds won't be able to. So having like a productive, pretty compact garden can be helpful. Just so you want to give your plants enough space, but you can also kind of help deter the weeds there. So if we look in our little flower aisle, we rarely have to weed this area because it's kind of got a really prolific row of zinnias, and the marigolds are mixed in. Really the main spots that weeds pop up are where there's a gap in the plants. So maintaining kind of a consistent planting throughout your seasons will help deter weeds also. So it's a good sign when weeds are growing in the soil, because that means something will grow there. But then you want to plant your vegetables or flowers or whatever it is you want to plant, and then that will help deter weeds. You'll still have to come in and do some hand weeding, but it'll at least be pretty deterred by just the productivity of the stuff you've chosen to plant in there. And this is where, yeah, it's helpful to know. So this is the marigold. It has a very similar stem, that striped stem, as the lamb's quarter. So, you know, that process of identifying the plants is part of it, which we made a handout. Sarah made a really great, helpful handout. So if you go to our website, txpetalproject.com, it's also in our link in bio. The website, I forgot to put the handout in the link in bio, but the website's there. On our website, we have a handout with kind of information about these weeds and pictures, so that can help you kind of learn those a little bit more, explore them. And then, yeah, you can always reach out to us with questions. We'll try to, Sarah's a plant researcher. we just have this interest, so we'll try to help you, even if we don't know what it is right away.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
the
thanks.
handout's by no means complete either.
Right, yeah,
It's just like 16 weeds.
Yeah, just
There's
a little
so
bit.
many.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was super informative. I hope everyone at home learned something new. I definitely did.
Thanks, y'all.
Definitely, like I said, check out the txpetalproject.com. Follow them if you're not already. Lots of great information on there. But yeah, thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Fun, everybody. Thanks.
Great. All right. Have a good day.
Bye.